All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Ketodontist Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Matthew Standards. So excited that you're here. Today we have a very special guest, Brenda Richards, which I'll bring on in just a minute. But before we get started, just want to let you guys know what's been going on here. With the holidays approaching, things have been kind of crazy. Still doing my PSMF thing. Had a couple of days where, like yesterday, great example yesterday, had a big surgery case lined up and everything. Well, we only do oral sedation at my office. I don't have IV and I don't have a hospital near me that I can go do general. So we only do oral. And this patient was a pain management patient, and his pain management docs kind of ticked him down off of his pain meds. Well, turns out he was having basically withdrawal from his pain medicine. And so it was counteracting any of the effects from the oral sedatives. And so we only got through part of the procedure, and before I was just like, you know what, we're not doing this. I'm not putting you through this. We're going to get you somewhere that you can do IV. And he has very limited travel, and out here in the rural areas, it's really tough to get folks to specialists and everything. But it was a point that I was like, yeah, for your safety and for the quality of the results that we want. Well, so that means to help expedite the process, after I got done working with him, I took an hour-and-a-half drive to Wichita to one of my favorite specialists that I refer to basically bring all of the documentation, all of the models and everything, and have like a quick meeting with him, a spur of the moment sit down with him to go over the case. And so that was 3 hours round trip drive that I wasn't really planning on making yesterday. And so I had to, I had some tuna packets. I got some lean beef sticks at the convenience store and stuff. So I still made it work, but it wasn't like what you usually see me on the Instagram page posting, the more nutrient-dense foods. But there are things that we can do to mitigate some of the damage when life doesn't quite go as planned, and that's how it's going to happen. Things aren't always going to go as planned. So I'll go into my little spiel here that you know before. I'm Dr. Matthew Standridge. I'm a practicing dentist here in Yates Center, Kansas. I'm also a certified primal health coach, almost certified personal trainer through ISSA. That should be done by the end of the month, so excited about that. Since the beginning of 2016, I've lost over 90 pounds by adopting a primal ketogenic lifestyle to help correct my metabolism, heal inflammatory issues, and improve mental clarity and cognition. While this show is not meant to be seen as giving specific medical advice, after seeing the improvements in my and my family's quality of life through diet and lifestyle, I was inspired to spread the message of healthy, real nutrition to my patients, my community, and now you. So this show will track my journey to even further weight loss and increase health, as well as help guide others along their path to better health and wellness. And if you're new to the show, I welcome you with open arms. Very glad that you found your way over here. Each week, we just keep getting more and more people. There are more and more people that request membership to the listener page for the show, and this is how we make change. It all starts from the ground up, and there's a lot of misinformation and confusion around these low-carb paleo spaces, and that's what this show is really born out of necessity, to try to clear through some of that. So if you're new, I welcome you to the show. For those of you who are regular listeners, I'm glad you're back. It's the loyal listeners that are the backbone of the show, of what we're really trying to accomplish here. And it's, if we remember the goal of the show, and that was to have a message of healthy living and reversing the epidemic of the chronic diseases, especially when it comes to this whole diabesity thing that's set to basically bankrupt the country. And these things are completely reversible with proper diet, with exercise, with lifestyle changes. And so it's up to us to help continue to grow this message. We can't really let our foot off the gas. We have to keep going. And definitely with the internet now, there's so much misinformation that spreads and spreads so quickly and so widely that it's up to us to be a counter current to that. So if you haven't yet, I call on you to share the show, leave a review if you want. 5-star or written would be great. It's through these steps that we reach more people to make an impact on the world, and I can't really do it without your help. I'm here in a little town of 1,300 people on a blip in the map in Kansas. It's up to you guys to really get the message out there. So without further ado, I want to introduce Brenda Richards. Brenda has been a yo-yo dieter for her entire adult life until now. In 2009, she reached out for help at her highest known weight of 407 pounds. In the spring of 2010, she had weight loss surgery, which took her to maintaining at around 290 pounds after the honeymoon period of weight loss her surgeon described had ended. During the winter of 2016, Brenda nearly passed out in the store. Her doctor ordered several tests, including one which resulted in her being identified as pre-diabetic. At that time, her doctor suggested considering a paleo diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, or an Atkins diet. She began researching and found the Ketogains style approach to ketogenic diet, which is basically a blend of the other three. She began her ketogenic portion of her journey in the spring of 2016. After 6 months on the diet, she was no longer pre-diabetic. Brenda's passion for strength training is a direct result of her experience in the Ketogains Bootcamps. She never lifted prior to enrolling in one and was extremely intimidated and overwhelmed her first day in the gym. But she went back and she kept going. She has participated in back-to-back camps, first as a client and now as a coach. She's gone on and she's actually certified by the National Council of Strength and Fitness as a personal trainer and as a sports nutrition specialist. Brenda has degrees in mathematics, computer science, and educational administration. She works full-time as an instructional coach. She has a passion for educating and empowering people to help find the courage within to risk trying something new and push beyond their comfort zones to achieve levels they didn't know were within reach. Her credentials include she's a certified personal trainer through the NCSF. She's sports nutrition specialist through the NCSF. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics and Computer Science through Central College, and she has a Master of Education in Educational Administration through Grand Canyon University. So, Brenda, welcome to the show. So happy you're here.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, so before we get into your incredible story, tell my listeners a little bit about who you are. Tell more personal stuff. What do you do for work? What are your hobbies? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an instructional coach, which means I teach teachers. Prior to that, I was a math teacher for 24 and a half years, something like that. I'm a transplant from Iowa and living in Arizona, working in Southern California. And I consider myself a desert rat at this point. I freeze when I go back home.
Right.
And I'll be back in your neck of the woods in a short amount of time, freezing. You'll be seeing me like this. I have a Yorkie terrorist that is my only child. She is a dynamo, and boyfriend. And I like to travel. I don't get to enough, but I like to. Like to read. Again, not enough, but I like to.
Understood.
That's a little bit about me.
Very cool. So, you had mentioned that in your introduction that you've been a yo-yo dieter your entire adult life. Give us a little bit of that backstory. So, tell us a little bit about where you started. What did obesity, gaining weight, did that come on a little bit later in life? Like at a certain point you started packing on? Has it been something you've dealt with your entire life? Tell us a little bit about that kind of backstory there.
In high school, I was about, I'm going to say right around 150 pounds. And that got me labeled as one of the fat girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I got put in the fat girls PE class, which warped the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm reading James Clear's book called Atomic Habits. And there's a line in there that says, behavior changes when identity changes. And from junior high school on, I identified myself as the fat girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of my choices were centered around that. And I kept gaining weight. And who I was a dieter. Who I was a yo-yo dieter. And this was self-defined understanding of who I was. I would gain weight. I would lose weight. I would gain a little bit more weight. I would lose weight. And that's who my identity was at that point. And until I was ready to break that cycle, I was constantly gaining, losing, until I reached, I say my highest known weight was 407 because that was the only time I stepped on a scale.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I was more than that. I know I was 420, 430 because I had watched my weight prior to going into the doctor at that point. So I know, and I had been kind of low carbing it prior to going into the doctor to try to lose a little bit before going in. So I know I was upwards of 420, 430.
Wow.
But no, my entire adult life, I just kept yo-yoing until I was higher and higher and higher and higher.
So going into the doctor and everything, were you looking at, like, was it your idea to want to do the weight loss surgery? Is it was something that your doctor ended up recommending? How did you guys come to going down that path?
Honestly, I didn't have a doctor because anytime I would go into any doctor, they would tell me, Brenda, you need to lose weight. And I didn't want that ongoing accountability to one person. Mm-hmm. So I never did have a personal doctor until I started pursuing weight loss surgery.
Gotcha.
I had something happen in the spring of, it would have been 2009. As a high school teacher, you work with teenagers. Mm-hmm. And teenagers can be downright cruel at times. I'm getting kind of emotional thinking back to this. I went out to my Yukon after work one day, and living in Arizona, we always leave the windows cracked. And I got into my car, and there was a paper in the seat, and there was a drawing of me. It was a horrible drawing, making fun of my weight. And I sat there in my car in Arizona and bawled. And a friend of mine who I worked with had weight loss surgery in the spring of 2009, a little bit before this. And I went to her and I said, tell me what you did. I need to do something. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live this way. And at that point, I was so incredibly unhappy. I was so broken up. The photo, that's the first time I've ever shared that with anybody. The drawing was kind of the tipping point for me. And I had walked by children so many times and heard, and they'd laugh.
Yeah.
But that was like a tangible right then and there. And I said, this is not where I want to be. And so I reached out to her, and she took me to a support group locally. And everybody there had weight loss surgery or they were pursuing it. And I said, okay, guys, I need to know who doctors are that support it, because not all doctors support weight loss surgery.
Right.
And I said, I need a list of names of doctors locally that support it. And I went into the doctor with the intent of pursuing weight loss surgery. And so the doctor I went into, he was a proponent of it, especially based on the fact that I was 407 pounds when I walked into his office.
Right.
And so we started pursuing it right away. About 6 months later, and I scheduled it simply because of vacation from work.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, there were certain times that were better. I could have had it much sooner, but I opted to wait until March of 2010 and had weight loss surgery then. But it was constantly stepping through, meeting with my surgeon, meeting with a psychologist, a dietitian, everything, to step up to that, going through all the tests and everything.
Well, first off, I wanna say thank you very much for opening him up and sharing that. That is a tragic story that ultimately, how do I want to say, ultimately led to something amazing happening, and that it got you kick-started down this story, this journey into where you're at now. In some ways, that is a blessing, but it is a cruel, terrible blessing. But I want to thank you very much for sharing that, and that's very brave to.
I was thinking about it this morning. That. I wish I had kept that photo, and I'd be doing it with a transformation photo. This is where I was, and here is who I am now.
That would make a great hashtag Transformation Tuesday right there. Yeah, absolutely. No, man. So, but yes, thank you. So you had mentioned that you had to meet with nutritionists, you had to meet with psychologists. Tell me a little bit more about that. To give the audience a little bit of understanding, I'm pretty interested in the whole weight loss surgery thing, not for myself, but because I have experience with it via osmosis through my mom, because my mother and I grew up obese, and she topped out. They were estimating her highest weight was about 450. They don't truly know because they had to go to a loading dock scale, and the highest it went was like 420, and it was above that. It was maxed out. So she literally had her life saved via weight loss surgery, through bariatric surgery. And so I have, because of that, and she lost a lot of weight, and she's kept it off, and she's amazingly healthy now. She's beautiful. And it was her going through that and seeing that when I was in 8th grade or something, 8th or 9th grade, that sparked me to pick up Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution, read it, implement it, and to lose 130 pounds, because I was already over 320 at that time. And so, to give the listeners a little bit of backstory of why I might be talking a little bit more about the weight loss surgery side of things, is because I've had my personal life impacted by it so much. So, Brenda, tell me a little bit more about that process, because, like I said, you had to meet with nutritionists and psychologists. What were they really preparing you for and evaluating?
When I first started researching a surgeon, I got on the internet and looked at ratings of surgeons, because there are some surgeons out there that are very poorly rated, and they get in here as a side business kind of thing. I selected a surgeon who had trained under some of the top surgeons in the nation in terms of bariatric surgery. Mm-hmm. She was the top weight loss surgery surgeon in Arizona. The anesthesiologist was also the number one anesthesiologist in the state of Arizona. Things to pay attention to for any surgery, not weight loss surgery only, but any surgery.
Yep.
But the psychologist, there are a lot of people that go in and they are not mentally prepared for all of the there needs to be a mental shift,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not ready for that. There's some people that are just not stable and they don't have the support system in place to go through with surgery.
Mm-hmm.
A responsible surgeon will check into that. Not all of them have that component. The dietitian talked about what we should do after surgery. And looking back now, not then, I didn't realize this, but looking back now, she described a ketogenic diet. However, there were no numbers associated with it, but I find it really interesting. Here's weight loss surgery, but afterwards, you're basically going to eat keto. And she told me very loosely, you're going to eat a lot of protein. You're not going to eat so many carbs, and you're going to use fat and adjust it kind of thing. And while you're trying to lose, you want to lower the fat. Basically, that's the keto diet.
Right.
But so, I mean, weight loss surgery works a lot of times because of malabsorption and restriction.
Mm-hmm.
However, the type of eating that she described was basically what anybody on the planet could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, now I wish I had found all of this first. But I don't know that mentally I was in a place where I could have done this at that point because I was ridiculously desperate. When I look back, I say at that point in my life, I was in such a dark place that I was basically committing suicide daily by food choices.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so unhappy. And so I would cope with that unhappiness by putting food in my mouth that was comforting and was my friend, and just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. But there were a lot of things that they didn't tell me going into weight loss surgery. They didn't tell me about all of the potential side effects and problems, complications after weight loss surgery that I could experience. About 3 weeks after I had weight loss surgery, I had to call my surgeon because at that point I could not eat. I could not take vitamins. I could not take liquid Tylenol.
Wow.
And I couldn't drink water. Anything that I tried came back up. And I developed what is called a stricture. I had Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, which means they take your stomach and make it about yay big.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, there's a pouch. At the bottom, there's a small opening that's supposed to be less than 1 centimeter. And I had gone down to 0.4 millimeters.
Oh, wow.
As the opening. And so everything would hit the bottom of that pouch and come back up, including water. Of all things, water. So
let the listeners know a 0.4 millimeters is about the diameter of like a coffee stirrer. And so that's how constricted that thing had become.
Thanks. And so I went back in and they kind of did like a balloon operation thing. And they went back in and opened up the bottom of my pouch so that food and water would pass. And it was miserable. I was ridiculously dehydrated, of course.
Yeah.
My electrolytes were completely wonky. This is why now on the ketogenic diet, I emphasize electrolytes so much because I know the complications that result from having them low. My potassium was dangerously, I could die low.
Wow.
And so I had potassium given to me intravenously. And they did not cut it with as much saline or whatever as you typically do. And so I had an IV going right here straight into my heart, and it burned the entire way. And I cried like a baby for the entire time the IV was going in. And they came to me and said, okay, now we got to do another bag. And I said, no, it can't happen. I can't do this. And so my boyfriend at the time went and talked to him and said, we need to find another way. And then they came in with a little shot of potassium, said, okay, drink this. And I'm like, okay, that would have been the easiest way to do it.
We couldn't have done that from the get-go, huh?
So that was the very first side effect I discovered from weight loss surgery. Even now, there are things that I deal with. I'm 9 years out, 8.5 years out from surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And on a weekly basis, I have food get stuck. as a result of food getting stuck, my body creates stuff. I'm not going to get all gross, but it basically makes me feel like I'm drowning. That's a fun thing to deal with every week. And anytime I go to the doctor for lab work, I have to give at least 8 vials of blood. As a result of that, my electrolytes go all wonky, giving the blood. And so I have to supplement that. As a result of that, I always have massive weight gain the next day, like 8 pounds of weight gain because of trying to balance electrolytes and everything. It's fun. And my malabsorption issues mean that we have recommendations for magnesium on the ketogenic diet. I take 3 times of that daily. Wow. Otherwise, I get numbing sensations in my extremities. Again, fun.
Right. And I think that's kind of a misconception. Well, not to name names by any means, but the other day, even on one of the forums, Facebook threads, somebody had kind of spit it out like weight loss surgery was kind of like an easy thing, like it was an easy out. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Most people going through weight loss surgery are kind of at the end of their rope. But then secondly, like what you were just mentioning, there's so many side effects to it. There are so many sequelae down the line that it's not a walk in the park. It's not a easy in and out, you're done with no repercussions. It's an ongoing management issue.
And I find, because I have people contacting me constantly regarding, should I have weight loss surgery? Should I do the ketogenic diet? And I really, really, really strongly discourage people from pursuing the weight loss surgery unless they have given 100% to the ketogenic diet, because I do think knowing how they're going to be recommended to eat after surgery, if their surgeon is worth anything. Because sadly, many of them don't have a nutrition component to the weight loss surgery process. I know I've encountered somebody that his doctor told him to eat nothing but watermelon afterwards. And you know what happened? He ended up dying. Well, I didn't encounter him. I encountered a family member of his, because there was no nutrition guideline or anything, but because watermelon was easy to fit into the pouch and easy to pass through the pouch, that's what they recommended.
Wow.
A whole lot of nutrients in watermelon.
No.
I encountered somebody on one of the forums the other day who, a friend of theirs had just had weight loss surgery and nearly died as a result of it, because of a botched surgery. It is major, major surgery. I talk about my innards as Frankenguts, because it just totally rerouted everything.
Yeah.
And I knew that going in. I'm not speaking like I'm a victim, because I did this by choice.
Right.
But now there's a lot of side effects that I was unaware of going into it.
Right. Yeah. So, man, going past the weight loss surgery, so that happened in 2009. And
2010, yeah.
Okay. And so it was in winter of 2016 that you said that you nearly passed out. So how much weight had you lost at that time? About what weight were you kind of staying at that time? Tell us a little bit about that.
The first 14 months after weight loss surgery, I got down to 260 pounds. My surgeon told me, and this is true of all weight loss surgery people, there is a honeymoon period that you'll actively lose weight. And then at that point, pretty much it just stops.
Right.
Unless there are massive changes to the diet as well.
Right.
And so I got down to 260 after 14 months, and then I gained back over 5 years, 30 pounds. And so I was right around 290, and that's 280, 290 is where I was maintaining at. In January 2016, I walked into Walmart to get some medication, and I was waiting in line for the pharmacist. When I got up to the counter, I was feeling really, 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 really flushed. And the the clerk said, would you like to sit down? Would you like to sit down? And all I could think is, no, I stood in that line for so long. I don't want to sit down. Just give me my medicine. But I must have looked horrible because the pharmacist came out from behind the second counter and a customer came up from the line and they held on to me because I was about to pass out. And they ended up calling the ambulance, and I sat down for a while, drank a little bit of water. And then once I wasn't shaking like this anymore, I said, I'm getting out of here because I'm not getting in an ambulance today. So I took off, sat in my car until I could totally get cooled down, get stabilized, everything like that. And I went home and called the emergency line for my doctor and said, I need to get in and see the doctor tomorrow. And I did. And he started a series of tests that led me to find out I was pre-diabetic. So that's where it all started. That was January 2016. February 5th, 2016. These dates are important to me because these are the dates that changed my life. February 5th, 2016, he told me to try one of those 3 diets, anti-inflammatory, paleo, or Atkins. And so I went home from him that day and I started researching. And this is the one time that Facebook ads were good. And what came up on the side were ketogenic diets pages on Facebook. And so I clicked on a few of those and I just started looking. And I had been exposed to the ketogenic diet a couple times over the years. One time was in a movie called First Do No Harm with Meryl Streep, where it was used to treat epilepsy.
Yeah.
And a couple other times were as a result of seeing people use it potentially, I want to emphasize that, potentially, to work against cancer. And so it intrigued me and it kept popping up. So when it showed up on the Facebook ads, I joined a few pages and I started looking at a few pages. And I say it's by the grace of God, I ended up on a page called Ketogenic Dieters that follows pretty much the same science as Ketogains. Cool. And talks about protein as an emphasis and fat not being the goal, but being adjustable basically to your goals.
Right.
And restricting carbs to put you into a state of ketosis. And I truly say it was a godsend that I ended up there because I also ended up on some pages where the recommendation, when stalls happen, oh, you're stalled? Here, eat fat.
Do a fat fast, yeah.
Yeah, those pages scared me, honestly, because I knew that did not make sense because I could look in the mirror and I could see fat.
Right.
I knew I didn't need gobs of fat. I knew that going in. And so even knowing nothing about the structure of the ketogenic diet, at that point, I knew a little bit of common sense. I've got fat. I don't need gobs of fat. It doesn't make sense. So I started pursuing the diet that way. And I actually started the diet April 6, 2016. I lurked for exactly 2 months. That's just coincidence. But I started on a Wednesday of all things. I mean, there's no perfect day to start. There's no day that the planets will align, but
That's
that was
right.
my and when I looked at the success and looked at the recommendations on the pages, what I found there, I didn't find Ketogains right away. What I found there just made sense to me.
Right.
And when I looked at the transformations there, they were unparalleled at that point based on that page and the other pages I was on.
Yeah.
And I saw people that looked like me that were being highly successful on the diet. And I mean, if they could do it, I could do it.
Right.
And so that's why I began with, and that's why I share my story, frankly, because I want people to know if I could do it. I mean, I'm just an average Joe. If I could do it, they can do it. There's nothing magical about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I fully agree. So when you found the ketogenic dieters page, were there resources just shared on that page, books, other pages, people on the page directly that helped you kind of get things set up, or how did that progression work from finding that page, getting motivated by seeing the transformations, by seeing the examples? How did that transition to structuring what you're going to then implement?
Just like any other Facebook group, they have a pinned post with information, and that's where I began. And there were very knowledgeable admin team members. Actually, there was some overlap at that point, and there were some common admin at that point. That's how I came in contact with Tyler and Luis.
I see.
And that's what led me to Ketogains. And so I just used the resources that were there. Honestly, I know that Finney and Volek is the foundation, you know, their Art and Science of Low Carb Living is the foundation of that page. But I didn't hop into the books. I hopped into the pin post and read the basics, and didn't dig into the background until a little bit later. But I would look at the photos and I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. There's a statement out there, YOLO, you know, you only live once, and people use it to do frequently stupid things.
Yeah.
But at that point, YOLO was my, hey, I've got one shot at this life thing.
Right.
And I tell people, in fact, Tyler asked us in the boot camp the other day, basically, what was your goal, or what was your big goal? And he often talks about what's your why. And at that point, I wanted to do more than just exist. And that's what I was doing on a daily basis. I wanted a chance to actually live and experience life. And such a silly thing. I wanted to be able to shop in any store. Right. And be able to wear things that reflect my style versus my size.
What you can fit into. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was the queen of, oh, that fits. Let me buy it in 6 colors because that fits.
Yeah.
And I look back at my photos. I'm like, God, that blouse is such a 80-year-old shirt that I would never choose to wear, but it fit. So I had that in blue and I had it in pink.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I found a well-formulated ketogenic diet. So
awesome. So then from there, you also made contacts through mutual people into the Ketogains space. So tell us a little bit about that, as far as what got you really diving into the Ketogains philosophy, eventually getting set up on a boot camp, the struggles of starting boot camp and just being completely overwhelmed. I can only imagine, especially for someone who's never lifted before. I mean, I have a strength and conditioning background, and even when I started boot camp, I was like, holy crap, there's a lot here. And so for someone straight new, I know it can be overwhelming. So tell us a little bit about that journey and you getting started down that road.
I started boot camp August 1st, 2016. They were rolling out with the first kind of trial version of a beginner boot camp. And they had kind of a special program. It was just, let's see how this works.
Right.
So there was a small group of us that started in what I would describe as a beginner boot camp. And when I went in there, I had the mentality that I want to give this my all because this has the potential to change my life. And I don't want to half-ass it.
Yeah.
Because I want to get the most out of this. They say that 80 to 90% of weight loss is your diet. And I'm looking at the boot camp at that point and I'm like, yeah, but I want that other 10 to 20%. And I'm going to fight for myself and I am going to do everything I can to make this work. And I remember like the day leading into boot camp, and I was walking through Sam's Club and, following along on the Facebook page. And Luis told me, Brenda, you're going to eat eggs every day. By the way, this is something that you can change. The diet is not rigid per se. But he told me, Brenda, you're going to eat eggs every day. And I had gone 46 years of my life not eating eggs because every single time I would eat eggs, I would get sick like right then and there.
Wow.
I remember walking through Sam's Club And I was bawling. I felt so sad for felt so bad for my mutual customer people around me, because they had to be looking at me like, what the
What
heck
is
is
wrong
wrong
with
with
her?
this person? And I went and I said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to give it my all. So I'm going to figure out a way to eat eggs. And I did. And now I eat them like 5 days a week. But that was one of the first things that I had to overcome. It was that there were, by the way, it's not a hardcore, hard and fast. For those of you watching the video, it's not a deal breaker. Okay. So
Right.
don't walk away from boot camp because of eggs.
Right.
Please. It's definitely not a deal breaker. We can work with you. But for me, that was something that was important because I wanted to give it my all. And I had done it my way for so long. And I saw the success of my way for so long, or lack thereof.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I need to do things differently, because they say nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right.
So I needed something to change. And then the very first day I walked into the gym, the only thing I had ever done at the gym were some machine weights and cardio. And I always thought I hated the gym. I really thought I hated it, because I would go on the treadmill or elliptical and I would be there for hours on end. And I hated going, and it was a burden. But my first day in boot camp, I'm like, okay, got my little videos on my phone and I've got my workout program, and I'm going to go in there. And I went to the free weight section, which I had never walked into in my life before. And just walking into the free weight section was beyond intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened up my phone and I pressed play on the video. Let me see how to do, I'm going to make something up. Dumbbell fly. Let me review that. Okay, it doesn't work. All right, let me go to dumbbell curls. That's that. It doesn't work. And so I go through my videos and I couldn't get them to play. I said, well, I don't know what to do. And I had watched them, but I had psyched myself out at this point. I'm like, okay, it doesn't work. I'm going to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home and I don't know why this always happens. If I have a mental breakdown at all, I have it in my kitchen. And I sat on my kitchen floor and I cried. And I had a hardcore sob. And I'm like, come on, Brenda, this is your shot. This is your chance to change things. Mm-hmm. And I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And then I let myself have a good cry. And then I picked myself up, but I went to my computer and I said, okay, now you're going to figure out a way to make this work. Mm-hmm. And so I emailed myself the links to all the videos. Mm-hmm. I mean, I sat there and I'm like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to make it work. So I would open up all the videos and I sent them to myself in email. And I went back that next day and I was still intimidated. I was still overwhelmed. I was still out of my element. I was still out of my comfort zone. But I went through the motion and said, okay, dumbbell flies. Okay, here's what I do. Okay, dumbbell curls. Okay, here's what I do. Mm-hmm. And I felt awkward, definitely. But I kept going back. I kept going back. I kept going back. And after a few months of doing boot camp, I had a lady chase me down. She hopped off of her recumbent bike and she chased me down into the weightlifting area at 4:30 in the morning. And she said, I don't know who you are, but I've seen you since you started and you inspire me so much and you make me want to come back every single day. And I cried in the gym. And that, I think, was a transition point for me. Mm-hmm. That I just kept going back and going back and going back and going back and going back until it wasn't, I have to go to the gym. I get to go to the gym.
Right.
And then it became not I get to go to the gym. I get to go home. I get to go to my oasis. I get to go to my time.
Right.
And it wasn't the gym. It was my time that I got to make time for.
Right.
So, big mental shift. I always say that boot camp brought about strength gains. Definitely, I can lift a heck of a lot more now than when I started. But the mental gains that went with my process through boot camp,
right,
huge.
Yeah. So, first off, before I forget, how long do you think it was of showing up every day before you felt like it wasn't as awkward or it wasn't as intimidating?
I think end of my first boot camp, I started my first boot camp with Rachel Harding. She's a dear friend of mine. She's in boot camp. She's an admin there at Ketogenic Dieters. And she and I became friends. And I think that really helped a lot, getting connected. And I think when I posted my first form check video, and it almost took the entire boot camp, I think that's when things started to shift for me mentally. And I knew I was all in at that point because I was pushing past that comfort zone. But I think getting connected really helped the transition, and investing and pushing myself in things that were uncomfortable really made a difference. And I had a little bit of downtime between my first boot camp and my second boot camp, just a little bit. And I kept going. So that was a clear indicator that there was something that I was making mine at that point.
Right. Is becoming a part of who you are versus just something that you're going through the motions. So going from that then, you've progressed and you kept going back and everything. You became a certified personal trainer and sports nutritionist. What was the call to action from going from a boot camper to be like, I want to start it, not just leading going through the motions and becoming an example, but actively coaching people through this? What was that transition like? What was it like going from where you've been to becoming a personal trainer?
Honestly, Tyler and Louise had spoken to me. I went to the Ketogains seminar in Las Vegas in October 2016. And that was barely in my second boot camp, I think, at that point. And Louise had talked to me and he said, we're going to be bringing on some mods at some point. Just continue to push for your education. And I wasn't even thinking about personal training at that point. I just kept reading and digging and digging and digging. And I came on as a Ketogains mod, I want to say June 2017, something like that.
Okay.
And kind of started helping out in the boot camps. And Louise said, we would like you to get certified. And really, me? And so I went ahead and got certified. And once I got certified, then I started coaching with Ketogains. I do think that's something I respect highly in the Ketogains community, that education is valued. There are a lot of keto coaches out there that have zero qualifications at all. I mean, there's no hardcore, hey, this is the keto certificate, but I mean, nutrition certificates or personal training certificates or something like that to at least support coaching as far as sports or fitness, or looking at nutrition. I mean, like precision nutrition, that certification, or something to at least support your learning. I respect Ketogains in that education is valued and encouraged. And it's actually one of the pillars of Ketogains, education, empowerment, and achievement.
Yeah.
And so they pushed me kind of to educate myself a little bit further. And so I went and got my personal training certificate. I actually chose NCSF because I wanted something accredited. And then when I compared some of the accredited ones, I found that NCSF has an optional weekend workshop, 2-day workshop that you meet in person with one of their trainers. I mean, like educational trainers. And there's a classroom component, and then there's a form component,
right,
where you go in and you work on form and whatnot. And that's why I chose NCSF over some of the others. I had talked to a friend of mine who is an athletic trainer with one of the colleges and asked her for recommendations on personal training programs that would be meaningful outside of just the gym, but perhaps to open doors down the road.
Right.
And so she gave me recommendations for some organizations. And when I compared them side by side, that was the deciding factor, was I wanted that personal in face-to-face component.
Very cool. Very cool. So what drives you then to be because this isn't necessarily your day job. You do this outside of your regular, so you're already working a full-time job, and you're doing all of this on your mornings, evenings, weekends. What drives you to be a coach and to admin and mod and different ketogenic pages and all that stuff?
For me, the reason for ketogenic dieters, for example, I volunteer. It's a page of over 100,000. For Ketogains, I am paid as a coach, but I do it by choice because I want people to see that there's hope. I want people to see that their current reality does not have to be their destination and their final arrival point, that they have the power to change and choose a different ending to their story at any given point. And so that's why I just am involved in the community at large. I want to inspire people to find change within. I want people to realize that they are stronger than they know. There's a quote out there, and I'm not going to quote it right, but it talks about the fact that every single one of us is an overcomer. Every single one of us has made it through 100% of our days. And that is pretty good statistics right there. There are times that we feel crushed. There are times that we make bad choices. There are times that we want to give up, some of us. But when we look in the mirror, we've made it through 100% of our days. And we can't say that about any other area in our lives. You know, there are times that we're total screw-ups in other areas and our success rate is not 100%. But as an overcomer, that means that you can change things. And so that's what I try to share in the coaching community, in the general keto community, is that you have the power within to move to a different spot in your life. You just have to find it.
Absolutely. Well, I know that you have another meeting here in a few minutes, so I know you got to get going here pretty soon. But before we let you go, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way that folks can follow you or get a hold of you if they want?
I am on the Ketogains page all the time, Ketogenic Dieters, those two pages. With Ketogains, you can contact me via email, brenda@ketogains.com. We're doing signups for boot camp frequently, so you'll see me on the pages doing that. I am in the boot camps all the time, so join us in boot camp. It is life-changing. Yeah, that's where I am on the internet.
Awesome. And speaking of boot camps, folks, so this is kind of fresh off the presses here, but boot camp has been there's now a online portal available, and it's still the same website, Ketogains Bootcamps.com. So multiple gains, multiple camps, Ketogains Bootcamps.com. But they've redone the website. There's now a portal that's available. This next year, if I remember right off the top of my head, the next camp starts January 7th. So if you want to really hammer it home the new year, I'm all about, if you want to start changing stuff, start today. Don't wait till the new year. But if you want to join up with the next boot camp, next boot camp starts January 7th. And instead of, they are now 8 weeks long, and they have a whole different payment options on the website. You can just go to the website and they have everything listed right there. You can do what I think is really cool is they now do like a subscription service that if you just want to do boot camps indefinitely, you can just basically do a monthly subscription and just go through boot camps one after the other. And I think that is a fantastic idea. So really check it out. It made huge changes for me. Brenda is a walking testimonial for the power of these things. It was so, and definitely with the new revitalization, it's an overall around improvement that on what was already an awesome program. So check it out, and reach out to Brenda on social media. Follow you can see her in Ketogenic Dieters, Ketogains, all those groups. And, feel free to reach out with any questions to either one of us. And we'd be happy to help you out. So until then, next time, I'm going to try to get one more episode in, folks, before the new year. We'll see if it happens, but I'd like to do kind of an end of the year thing. So be on the lookout for that. But until I see you again, you guys take care, have a happy holidays, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.